Welcome, everyone, to episode 50, 40,
oh my goodness,
49 of the SnapCast podcast with your hosts, Brad O'Brien and Mike Cooley.
Almost a year into this.
Almost.
And we're still every week making it up like at the last possible second.
Look, I only remember important numbers. 49, not important. But the episode is gonna be dope. We might be on the verge of getting some herd immunity in the coming months to this COVID-19 stuff, right? That could mean big things, not just for the economy in general, but for all of these speculative investments that we've been making, that we've been told about. Man, we got something to talk about today. So welcome, everybody. If this is your first time joining us, this is a Magic the Gathering podcast geared towards the competitive Magic player with a casual interest in finance. MTG Finance, to be specific. We talk about Magic the Gathering and a whole bunch of Magic-related stuff. So if this is your first time joining us, welcome.
You are in the right place if that's what you're into. If you're into that sort of thing. I'm just kidding, unless you're going to do it.
Yeah, so do us a favor. If you're into this kind of stuff, if you like hearing some filthy casuals like yourselves just chat and have some genuinely good, friendly conversations about Magic the Gathering, if that makes your day a little better, do us a favor. Just hit that subscribe button. Give us a like on the video. Let us know in the comments what you think about what we're talking about. It helps us out, and it gets us into that ever so elusive
YouTube algorithm.
And look at the camaraderie between us. We're finishing each other's sentences by episode 49. This is, man. Yep.
Cheers to that.
And we even got a similar drink now. I cheersed with the microphone there too. Welcome, guys. I'm so happy. We're so happy that you joined us this week. But yeah.
I'm happy that there's actually some big competitive events going on with WotC.
Yeah.
They're doing the Zendikar Rising Championship coming up this weekend. December 4th, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. They kick off the Zendikar Rising Championships, features 72 members of the Pro League and Rivals League, along with a few other top players from qualifying events held on Arena and Magic Online.
Hell yeah. So we're gonna check that out a little bit today and look at some of the breakdown of the meta game and how healthy a lot of different formats that were previously not healthy, how healthy they look now. Just on the numbers distribution of different decks, things that are competitive. Looks really cool, man. So, we're going to dive into that. And then also just talk about some things to think about when this whole shindig opens back up and when you can finally play the mythical game of Magic in your local game store.
Or in your regional tournament event hall.
Yeah.
That sort of makes my soft bits hard and hard bits soft. Europe today approved the Pfizer vaccine.
Pfizer stock up.
I would guess, but we can talk about that more in a little bit. I want to talk about some of these decks that are getting played in Standard.
So first of all, guys, check out this breakdown, right? So this is a Standard metagame right now. It's especially for this. Is this for the entire metagame or just
just for this tournament? So this is there's 184 total players in this, battling for $250,000 in prizes.
Oh man, whoever told you Magic the Gathering wasn't profitable? Man, look at that. But dude, check out this metagame breakdown. Okay, so whenever a deck is like 10% of the meta, especially if it shares that same 10% with a lot of other decks, you usually have a pretty healthy format. If you have a handful of decks that are at least 10% of the meta, you've got yourself a healthy meta. That's like the magic number. Anything below 10 is a deck in the format. You know what I mean? It's a deck in the format. But when it's 10% of the metagame, it's a pretty viable deck.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned right now, in Standard, you have 5 very viable decks, along with some other decks that are in the meta that you have to worry about.
And I can lose to every single one of them.
You're damn right. That's what it's all
so
about.
good at losing to all of these decks.
That's what it's all about, man. I know that it sounds weird, but like having a meta like this is super healthy. It's very encouraging to, it's very encouraging to a new Magic player to see something like this. Like, oh, I have a deck that I built on Arena that's pretty similar to this. I have a lot of these cards. I could make a deck like this. You know what I mean? Whereas, I have to play this deck, or else I lose all of the games that I play. This is just super healthy. I'm really pumped about this format, man.
So Gruul Adventures has been a deck in Standard pretty much since Throne of Eldraine came out. I mean, we lost the Lucky Clover. They banned that out of Standard. But the Edgewall Innkeeper, Lovestruck Beast deck has being able to play Bone Crusher Giant and Stomp has been played since that deck came out.
Well, I mean, the adventure mechanic is so good. Like, being able to get value and not really give up card advantage is just eons beyond its time, I think. Like, we've talked about this before. Bone Crusher Giant is, I think, a staple in a lot of formats for a very long time. You know, how many decks before? There has been some Eternal decks that have just wanted to deal 2 damage, even at the cost of 2 mana. You know what I mean? Yeah. But now you have that, and you have a 4/3 body to back you up, along with just a whole bunch of other stuff, man. Like, I feel like this mechanic is ahead of its time. It's really good. It's really good.
It is. Yeah, I mean, it's just a pile of powerful cards. Scavenging Ooze, Eternal Staple, Bone Crusher Giant, now being played in all these different formats. Lovestruck Beast, 2 bodies out of 1 card. Really, you could look at that as 6 power and toughness for 4 mana.
Yeah, and think about it this way, too. There used to be cards like, I kind of forget the name of it, but it was like a 1/1 for 3 mana that came in and turned one of your forests into a 5/5 as long as it was there. It never saw any play because there was so much weakness to it. You know what I mean? But it seemed like 2 creatures in 1, but it wasn't really. Like, it was kind of ethereal in the sense, because if you got rid of either one of them, the card was garbage. But this one is so good. It gives you a 1/1 dude for 1 mana. No one's countering that. You know what I mean? No one's getting rid of that. And then you got a 5/5 later on for 3 mana. Oh my god, it's so good, man. There's so much value behind it.
Edgewall Innkeeper to make sure you keep drawing cards. This is not a deck list from the tournament. We don't have all the deck lists from this event yet, the Zendikar Rising Championship, but that was just a typical Gruul Adventures deck. Mono green food, man. Am I sick of that deck too?
Oh yeah. But dude, it's got a good card in it, man, and we'll probably talk more about this in a minute, but that Gilded Goose just does so much. That's a card in a lot of decks right now.
One of the things that I was bringing up actually here that's interesting, if we look at, these are all the decks that have been already submitted for this event this weekend. Gruul Adventures is about 23-24% of the field. If I look at MTG Goldfish, they're saying in the wild, Gruul Adventures is just under 19% of the meta. So, pretty representative.
With Teamer Ramp being a little higher than it.
Mono green food in this particular event, about a 17% metagame. Over here, about 14. So, really about the same weight. It's interesting that, do we even see Teamer Ramp in the...
Well, you see Teamer Adventures, which is that possibly a mislabeling? Because they have Genesis Ultimatum in it, which is...
They have to be Ramp.
Yeah, it's really, I think it's a misnomer. But, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you kind of run into the reason people have chosen those decks is they might have been trying to metagame their opponents going in, knowing that what is it? Gruul Adventures is the top deck in the format, or one deck is the top deck in the format. You choose the third place deck because it's the top deck because it can easily beat the second place deck.
So you go for the third place thinking that when you're at the top table,
you're going to have an advantage, or you're going to be the deck that they didn't expect. It's kind of like a metagame play. Or the deck that they didn't metagame against.
Perfectly reasonable. But I do find it interesting that as we compare Dimir Rogues and Dimir Control between 10 and 15% in the overall metagame, they're seen much differently. But the decks that are being registered for this event are not really surprising. I guess I don't really know why they chose to separate Esper Doom Foretold from Modern Doom Foretold. I think that perhaps they didn't want to say Doom Foretold decks are 11% of the meta.
Or maybe they're trying to, because they said Gruul Adventures and Teamer Adventures, they were like, well, since we differentiated there, based on our misnomer, we're going to have to differentiate down here. Where it probably would have been equally as well split if you would have called them the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doom Foretold still a card, man. God, that card is annoying. You ever had a Doom Foretold played on you?
Ever had 2 played on you? I have.
Yeah. Oh, man, that deck is so good. Deck is so good. Just having to sacrifice shit is like one of the worst feelings ever in Magic. When your opponent has, if you've ever played Vintage, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, screw Vintage, it's too expensive. But if you ever tried it, you might remember this deck called Stacks, where it used Smokestack to essentially make you do the same thing. Like, you just sacrifice something every upkeep.
Hate it.
It was so miserable, especially when you'd be locked out by shit like Trinisphere, or, in Standard's case, them using removal or controlling your board and getting rid of the things that they really need gone, and then letting you sacrifice something of your own choosing. How nice of them.
How nice of them. and slowing in those decks where, like, whenever I'm playing against the Doom Foretold decks, I'm always like, you know what? You can have the card out of my hand. You can have the token. I'll take the 3 damage. I'm just not going to play anything so that you sacrifice it and it blows up and goes off the board.
Right.
What are you looking for?
So I was getting my cursor ready so I could really draw attention to something. Mm-hmm. But you know what I find really crazy with this? Like, crazy good? Is that 9.2, almost at 10%, the magic 10% we're talking about, is other decks. I'm trying to circle it over here. You'll have to forgive me.
For those of you that are listening, this may sound like nothing.
Yeah, so I'm circling this other decks, 17 of them. It makes up for 9.2% of the metagame, almost 10%. The magic 10% we were just talking about is made up by other decks.
That's pretty healthy.
How often do you ever see that, man? This might be the healthiest Standard I've ever seen in my life, in my existence as a Magic player.
Well, and certainly I have long-term memory problems. I also have short-term memory problems. Thinking about back in January, February, March, before the shutdown, what Standard looked like at that point, when it was all in even October, November, December, when it was Oko and Oko had to go, and then it was all Uros all the time. And it's just like, okay, nothing is a 50% deck anymore.
Right.
Nothing is. All of these decks, like you said, are sort of rock, paper, scissors. Mono green food and Gruul Adventures might go toe-to-toe. Dimir Rogues might beat Gruul Adventures, but lose to mono green food. Who knows?
Man, it's so cool. I'm just so pumped at the healthiness of this format. Now, let's think about things like this.
I say who knows because I lose with all of them. I've played all of these decks, and I can lose with any of them.
You don't need to be a good Magic player to necessarily be a good Magic aficionado. and recognize value when you see it.
Oh, look, we got the others.
Oh, man. They give you a list of others. Esprit Control. The fact that there's only one Esprit Control deck in the format tells me healthy format. I know that sounds ridiculous, but Control, I'm so friggin' sick of that being, Control being a friggin' deck in Standard. In a dominant deck in Standard always. It's been like that for friggin' 10 years.
But that's what Esper and Mardu Doom Foretold are. Yeah. They just don't counter your spells. They make you sack whatever you put on the board.
Exactly, which I think is infinitely better. Because one of the worst feelings, right? At least when someone slams something on the board on their turn, right? And they're playing spells on their turn, and you get to play your spells. It's a good feeling, because if you don't have something in your deck that deals with what they have, you can easily blame it on yourself, and you can say, all right, maybe I should design this deck differently. But if you have the nastiest spells, and it's the nastiest deck, and you're like, this works together so well, and someone's like, counterspell, or, you know what I mean? Not being able to play your shit is the worst feeling in Magic. No one wants that. You don't want to not be able to play your shit. And having Esprit Control as such a dominant deck, or even Blue-White Control as a dominant deck in the format, I feel has always had that plaguing effect on the format. And the fact that it's one deck of close to 100 here.
Yeah.
Is just...
What do you say, 184 players.
Yeah, 184, but it's one deck. I'm so happy about that. It's long overdue. Esprit Control, historically a miserable deck to play against. No one wants to play against it.
Naya Winota? I mean, I don't understand really why they're playing that deck without the...
Treason guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a pretty crushing blow to the deck, I think. You can win with Winota now. It's still possible to just tee off and get so many creatures on the board. But when you can't make a tempo play, taking one of their permanents, it gets a lot worse, dude.
Gruel Food, which just seems like a worse version of either Red-Green Adventures or Mono-Green Food. Boros Cycling, that deck can get very aggressive. Only 2 players on that.
That's surprising. That deck has kind of taken a serious fall as well.
And nothing has changed.
And I don't really understand, because it still seems like a really good deck. Especially when Esprit Control is not a dominant, when people aren't countering your shit.
Yeah, I mean, you can still Zenith Flare for 10 and then Zenith Flare for 11.
Right? Seems really good. Seems like that might be the deck in this. I don't know. I mean,
Black-White Doom Foretold. I want to check that out.
But I guess Doom Foretold makes you sack the dude that you put on the battlefield and try to ramp up. And yeah, I guess it makes sense. But at the same time, man.
Lovestruck Beast, 408 copies.
Of course, man. Have you guys ever played a Lovestruck Beast? It feels good. There's very few cards out there in Magic that just feel good. Always feels good. Whether you top deck that card and you have to cast it as a 5/5 for 3, or whether you're like, all right, I got this in my opening hand, I'm going to cast it for 1, it just feels good. It just feels good. It's a very valuable card. It has a lot of value inherent in it.
It sure does.
Which is definitely going to be a theme of this cast here, is the value of cards. Very valuable card, I think. Lovestruck Beast. Unsung hero of a lot of standard decks, and I think possibly the mechanic itself is probably it's gonna outlast its meta.
Not all opinions expressed are the official viewpoints of the SnapCast podcast.
Yeah, but they are probably the opinions of me, and they're fucking awesome, dude. Tell me you guys haven't played a Lovestruck Beast and that card just feels good.
Yeah, but I'm not going to run out and buy 50 of them thinking that...
Well, no, because they've reprinted it so many times already. If you're ever going to get a card like that, like Lovestruck Beast, and you're going to try to hold some equity in it, you're going to want to get one of the special printings for sure. You have to make it special, because it's printed at rare, which these days is uncommon. And at that, there's some special printings of it, especially if it was Throne of Eldraine, right? So it had that special, some of the weird cards that could come up, like the adventure cards.
Showcase arts.
Yeah. Like, you could get those. Like, those are cool. I mean, I think it's a very valuable card. It outlives its time and standard, for sure.
All right. There is also a historic portion of this tournament. So Friday and Saturday each feature a combined 7 rounds of historic, and Sunday's top 8 double elimination playoff is exclusively historic.
They chose not to separate out the different colors of it here, though. They have Rakdos and Jund Sacrifice mixed into one.
Mm-hmm.
Because I suppose if they did split it up, this would look like a really bad metagame. But it kind of makes sense to put these decks together. They have the same mechanic, Sacrifice. You know,
Yeah.
So Sacrifice decks make up 30% of the field.
Yeah. Cat Oven is legal in historic. It is hard to argue the power of that 2-card combination.
And the good old Muxus Foxus is number 3 in there, man. Oh, I love it. Goblins making an appearance, man. Making an appearance in an eternal format yet again. So good, man.
Azorius Auras, making use of SRAM now being in historic. Along with what's the damn Spirit Dancer?
Every time you say Spirit Dancer, I just think of my boots in Diablo 2. Spirit Dancers. No, dude, SRAM is just good in and of himself. Like, we have talked about that card on the cast before as just being a card that you recognize the value in. And when the historic when the historic format came out, and especially when SRAM was printed in it, now you can see. Like, it's really good. It has a lot of value behind it.
Core Spirit Dancer. God, why was that so hard to think about? Yeah, you've got Core Spirit Dancer in historic. They just added SRAM, so you have 8 draw effects in this deck now.
So is this kind of like eggs in the sense where you just cast really cheap spells?
No, this is like Bogles.
Bogles.
So you cast Core Spirit Dancer, you throw on a Sentinel's Eyes, draw a card, throw on Angelic Gift, give it flying, draw a card, put on all that glitters and swing for fucking 12 in the air with lifelink.
It's got Alcide for the protection. Did anyone watch True Blood, by the way? Is anyone familiar with that series? Alcide. That's all I can think of every time I hear Alcide of Life's Bounty. This card is really cool. It's an enchantment creature, Nymph. Good old Nympho for 1 mana. And just protects your dude. It's a 1/1 for 1/1 lifelink for 1 mana. Enchantment creature.
Yeah.
Triggers all the right things. And holy shit, you can sacrifice it for 1 mana and protect your dude. This card is so good.
It's a poor man's stepmom, which is a poor man's mom.
I mean, it's just, if you ask me, dude, this card in certain decks is far better than stepmom could ever dream of being. Like in this deck. It's an enchantment and a creature.
Yep. So it does trigger Core Spirit Dancer, and it doesn't trigger SRAM, but it will.
Like you have with regular mom,
it
right?
only pumps all that's glittered. It won't draw you a card.
Yeah, but still, with traditional mom, Mother of Runes, I have rarely seen anybody attack with that card ever. You know what I mean? You're never attacking with it. It's just always sitting back, if not to protect herself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? This one, it's like an offensive card, and it has that lifelink ability to bring you right back in the game. I'm with Brad, joined late. Have you guys talked about Hull Breacher yet? I don't know. What is Hull Breacher? And if it's anything like the card Hull Breach...
Oh, Michael.
Hold on. Bring me up to speed. Bring me up to speed with what this is.
Hull Breacher is a broken card from the lovely Commander Legends set that doesn't let your friends play Magic.
What? Blasphemy.
So, I love when we get to show Mike a new card. Hull Breacher, 2 and a blue, flash. If an opponent would draw a card except for the first one they draw in their draw step, instead, you create a treasure token.
Card's busted.
Yeah.
Card's busted. This is a Chains of Mephistopheles in blue on a stick with flash. Get the fuck out of town, dude. This is so good.
Well, there's a reason why it's just been printed and it's a $30 card.
Get the fuck out of town. This is so good. Yeah. I don't know what else you want us to say, Mr. Eaton. This card is busted and good. Like, is it worth $30? Who knows? You know, it's one of those things that you kind of have to wait till the set gets printed and see how many get cracked and how many get passed around the trade tables at your local game store. But this card is good. It's definitely, here's what I really like about it. It's a replacement, a direct and almost better in some instances replacement for Chains of Mephistopheles. Like if you look at some of the decks in Eternal formats that use Chains of Mephistopheles, you're looking at control-y decks that are trying to lock you out, right? Chains of Mephistopheles, like, so Brad has so gratefully brought this up here. Look at this card. This card's on the reserved list.
Confusing as hell.
Yeah, confusing as hell. Don't try to read the actual text on the card. It just says if your opponents would draw a card other than the ones they draw each turn, they skip it and you draw instead. You know, it's cool. Really cool. It's really good for locking your opponent out.
Yeah, I missed one by a day and a half at our local game store. Our local game store owner posted that he had one in stock. Anybody interested in this? And I was like, no. And then somebody was like, dude, read what the Oracle text says and tell me that doesn't go right in Nakusar. And
yeah.
And I was like, oh, and then I called him back up and it was gone. But yes, so Hull Breacher.
Yeah.
Is like that reserved list stupidly expensive card.
And it's right in the same colors of Nakusar.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could tell me this isn't going in your Nakusar deck right here.
This isn't, because Nakusar wants to do them damage when they draw the card.
Yeah, but wouldn't you just rather, like, okay, now this is the thing. This is why I would put it in there. Because you give your opponent a very shitty option. Like, a very shitty option. Do you get rid of Nakusar?
Or do you get rid of Hull Breacher? I'm costing you card advantage, which in the long run is going to make me win. Well, and I'm ramping.
Right.
By making treasures.
Exactly. So I'm costing you card advantage and ramping. So what are you going to do? Get rid of Nakusar? Fuck no, you're not. You're going to get rid of this dude.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to get rid of this dude and Nakusar survives. And, you know, and now it's like, all right, well, now we got to get rid of this guy too. You know, it's so good. And if they make the wrong choice, if they make the wrong choice and they take out Nakusar in that circumstance,
yep,
you essentially guarantee yourself card advantage for as long as that remains on the board. No one's ever going to get card advantage on you. They can't brainstorm. They can't have their own Howling Minds. Can you imagine having turn 2 Howling Mine, turn 3 flash this in when someone goes to draw their extra card? That's it. That's it, dude.
So
hang it up.
Now, do you think that this card is going to be a $30 card?
It's only being released in a Commander set?
Well, Commander Legends it's a draft set. It's being drafted right now.
At rare, and there's mythic cards in the set, right?
There
mythic rarity.
There are. I'm hearing really, actually, and this is something that I have on list to talk about. And that's interesting. So the price is dropping because it's only been live for like a week.
Mm-hmm.
So the price is dropping. It looks like you can get near mint foils at $23. Who knows? Maybe next week it'll be $15.
Well, ask yourself this. Could they ever print this card in standard? No. You can't. Like, you shut down multitudes of decks by not allowing them to draw extra cards. You shut down multitudes of decks. It's not fun to play against. It's only fun in Commander when everybody is affected and you benefit from it, you know what I mean, but you don't get a game-ending advantage. You know what I mean? Then it's fun. In Standard, this would be miserable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they can't print it in Standard. This isn't coming to Standard. So now that we have that out of the way, where are their opportunities to reprint it? They have to make another set like this, like, you know, where they make a commander set that they have to draft. So maybe once a year they reprint it, which these days is pretty rare. If a card isn't reprinted 2 or 3 times in the course of a year, it's not is
it a real card?
Is it a real card? Right? But you know, they have very limited opportunities to reprint it. And I think that's something that you got to think about with any card that you spec on. I don't think this is a $30 card, but I could see this easily being a $15 card for a very long time. Like, a lot of value in this card.
There's another podcast that I like that is David Duffer's asking, is Hullbreacher going to see Legacy play? I absolutely assure you, Hullbreacher and Opposition Agent are already seeing play in Legacy.
I can almost guarantee you, Duffer, this will be in Vintage. I can almost guarantee you that. Like, how can your opponent win if you turn 1 Black Lotus and then Hullbreacher? How can they kill you on turn 1? In Vintage. How? I don't know. Do you? Like, I'm sure there's a lot of weird ways that would require a god draw that you could definitely get there. Like, you know, Black Lotus, Time Vault, Voltaic Keys style shit. But reasonably, they just can't. So if you're playing a fair deck in Vintage, this is the card. It's like, you can't draw cards, and I get artifact permanence when you try to.
So if we go to, just quickly, don't want to get too hung up on this one card for too long, but I shot over to MTG Top 8 and just did a search for all the decks playing Hullbreacher.
Jeskai Xerox is a vintage deck, isn't it? Jeskai Xerox is a vintage deck. I freaking called it. I did not know this. You guys saw it. I didn't know about this card.
Oh, but wait. And I don't know where this is, the Mythic Society. 14 players. It's not huge.
But it's in Vintage.
But it's in Vintage. So it's in the Jeskai Xerox deck.
Esper Paradoxal. Oh my god, yeah, I told you. Nailed it.
It's not going to be in mud, but
nailed it. Dude, I told you. Your opponent can't tee off and win turn 1 if they can't draw extra cards. 9 times out of 10 in Vintage.
Yeah.
It's just instantly, you slam this out early, it cuts out all the bullshit, which I think it's an unsung ability of this card. It basically says, for 3 mana, cut all the bullshit. We're playing a fair game here. And I think that's a very valuable card.
So one of the things, and I will absolutely give credit where credit is due, MTG Fast Finance, those guys are number crunchers when it comes to this stuff. Their last cast had about a 30-minute segment on Commander Legends. And with the info that they have access to, they think at the high end, there might be 80,000 booster boxes of this set out there. Sorry, 80,000 collector boosters.
Okay.
The drop rate on something like a foil full art mythic out of 80,000 boxes ends up being something like 3,000 copies.
No kidding.
Because it's like 0.04% to get one in a box.
Interesting. So are you saying that when we should pick up copies of this foil card right here?
So I'm not talking about Hullbreacher necessarily, but the when they started talking about the foil full art mythics, the foil full art rares, they were saying that for the foil full art rares, there might be 10,000 copies in existence. And that this is sort of a printed demand set for the booster boxes, but not for the collector boosters.
Mm-hmm.
So the collector boosters are where you're most likely to get those foil full arts. These cards may be way, way rarer than people think.
Which I'm so happy to hear that. Because in an era of Magic the Gathering, where it's not uncommon to see a card printed, much like we joked about, 2 or 3 times in a year. I'm talking to you, Tarmogoyf.
I'm talking to you, Fabled Passage.
Exactly. Like, really good cards just being recognized right away and printed so many times in a year. It's good to see that they're kind of paying some mind to preserving the value of some of these very good cards.
That said, we say this all the time, when a card gets reprinted, it's a great time to look at it. If you don't have a Vampiric Tutor for your collection...
What are they at now? Just out of curiosity. What is this? This Vampiric Tutor, mind you, a couple weeks ago, it was at 110. We didn't get to catch up on this last week because, of course, this Thanksgiving fell on a Thursday, which we hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. However, we missed talking about how much this actually did go down by. This card now is $60.
Wait, that's for foil.
That's a foil Vampiric Tutor?
Yeah.
You used to have to pay 110 for the regular. Now you can get a foil for 60.
Absolutely. Same with Mana Drain.
Yeah.
If you're somebody that even occasionally plays EDH, get the Mana Drain.
Oh my God. What is that at now? If it's less than 40, get all of them.
Yeah, I don't think it's less than 40 yet.
I was going to say, I don't think I've ever seen it in the history of Magic be less than 40.
So
$60 is that. I called that. I said it would go down to $60. And I said that would be a very healthy price for it.
Yep.
You know? It's crazy because before this cast started, we were talking about, investing in value, right?
Yeah. Actually, it's good. It's a good time to pivot to that.
Yeah. We were talking about investing in value of a card. And, I was actually telling Brad about my week in the stock market, being a millennial and investing in fucking EV and all of that shit and having a really rough week on that
He's
end.
talking about electric vehicles, by the way, not expected value.
Yeah. Well, I've learned a very costly and hard lesson in life, and that is always invest in the value of something. Don't worry about the hype. Worry about the value. And there's so much value in cards such as Mana Drain and Vampiric Tutor. It's known value. That I think that's inherently knowing Magic like we do. Why we called it at $60 when it got reprinted. Because it's so valuable. Like, the card is so valuable. Same with Vampiric Tutor. I don't think that card will ever be less than like $20-$30. There's just no way ever again it gets below that. You know what I mean? There's just too much inherent value with the card.
Right. And we've talked about this before, and we use that phrase a lot, but when a card has a price memory, a card has extreme playability. What happens with sets like this is that somebody opens a box and opens a Vampiric Tutor and opens a Mana Drain and thinks, I'm not going to sell this.
I just won the lottery with this.
I just won the lottery.
Yep.
Like, these cards are going in my collection. So the price is never going to go down lower than somebody thinks the card is worth to sell. And anybody that doesn't already have one is just keeping it. So that is not actually putting a copy into the market.
Look, I don't care if I had 17 copies of Vampiric Tutor and I cracked one and it was worth like $20-$30.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade it.
No.
I'd be like, I got 17 of these.
I'll wait till they go back up to 50.
Yep, I know what happens with this card. Like this. So the main point here is, if you needed some of these cards in your collection, Mana Drain, Vampiric Tutor, now might be the time to trade for them or to pick them up at a discounted price.
Yeah.
Because I know it's scary with the market being what it is and how much things get reprinted. These cards have inherent and known value, which is something that holds true for overtime.
So that's something where you're saying it's not really a speculation when you know that Microsoft is not going anywhere.
Google, not going anywhere. Amazon, I hate to break it to you, not going anywhere.
And
like, known value.
They might be a little pricier to get into, but your money is safe.
Right. That will never be printed into the ground of being a $1 card. You know what I mean? Like, it's never, you have to recognize that, like, okay, everybody wants Vampiric Tutor playing Commander right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody's getting more competitive with their Commander decks. Commander, as much as some people would hate to recognize this as well, is no longer a casual format. I'm going to say that on the record. Commander is no longer a casual format.
God damn it.
It's a competitive format with a lot of different players trying out a lot of different strategies. And if you bring your tabletop Commander deck, which, you know, used to be something people could do, to a table, you're going to get destroyed.
Well, I mean, with the Commander events that they started having, that Wizards was actually putting on, the little command zone things that they were doing, you would actually go in and, like, say my deck is a 3 or a 5 or a 7 or a 9 and get put in pods or pick pods based on that, because you're right. You can't just sit at a table with a bunch of players right now and expect them all to be casual decks.
Oh, yeah. I remember. Yeah, go for it.
I went to our LGS a couple of weeks ago on a Saturday to play some Mander. I think I got turn 5 comboed in the 2 games that I played.
Yeah. It's how it is. Like, every Commander deck now, you almost need an infinite combo in your deck to be competitive. You almost need one. It's like a necessity. Oh, my deck does all of this cool and fair shit, but it can also kill everybody instantly.
Yeah.
Like, you need that. It was so funny. I remember I played at Spellbound, which is this was years ago now at this point, 2-3 years ago, which is one of the LGSs up in our area. And it was a big Commander pod. Everybody came in and tried to get points for that day and rack up points over time. I came in with a competitive Commander deck that I was like, I've tried and tested this thing on Cockatrice, online, against my friends. I'm going to fuck you all up. Like, I just know I am. I know it sounds ridiculous, but, like, I looked at everybody else's Commander and I'm like, this is a casual Commander that you're playing. It's not one of the top tier ones that I know and recognize from online lists. I honestly don't care what you're doing. So what did I do in that one game? This was literally what I did. I shit you not. I played land, nothing. Land, nothing. For 5 turns, because everybody's going off and trying to do cool stuff, and I'm just like, I'm going to kill you all. And I'm just going to not draw any attention to myself, and I just know I have it right here in my hand. I've got it. And turn 4, I'm just like, bam, flash in Bell Ringer, and they're just like, oh, untap all your permanents that you don't have. And I was like, yeah. And then turn 5, Kiki Jiki. And I'm like, what you got now? Make a copy of Bell Ringer, untap all my permanents. I'm just going to keep doing it. What do you got? Oh, everybody's tapped out. You know what I mean? It was just one of those things. Everybody's trying to stunt doing their thing. And it's like, it sounds, like, I know it sounds bad, but it's like, that's Commander these days. My deck was fair. I could do all of these fair things and interact with people, but I just knew none of you guys have competitive decks. I'm going to wait for a perfect opportunity and kill you all. Like,
so like we say Commander. At the start of every episode, for the competitive Magic player with a casual interest in finance,
we's competitive, mofos.
Mike walks in and says, I'm taking you all to task. To be fair, I broke down most of Nakusar in favor of a new Grixis deck.
What? You broke down Nakusar?
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. I got to digest that for a minute. Nakusar was Brad's deck.
Since 2013?
That, like, nothing makes sense in my life right now. Brad just came off Nakusar. Commander must be really getting competitive.
Wait, what?
Listen not to what I said. Brad just deconstructed Nakusar. Shit's getting real.
Well, to be fair, I didn't entirely deconstruct it, because having that mana base and the tutors and the rocks and all of the stuff in there, I just switched to a different, slightly more, potentially more, and I will agree with what you said. So what I did was I looked at the new Sakashima of 1,000 Faces from Commander Legends.
Ooh.
And the reprinted Vile Smasher the Fierce, and said, let me try out this partner thing.
Oh my God.
And you can do a lot with that. You can just play like a Grixis good stuff kind of deck and just use Sakashima to copy Vial Smasher and play huge spells and just dome people.
Wow.
But what I decided to do was go for a sort of play into the legend rule doesn't apply.
Right.
And I have a whole suite of everybody's nasty commanders in Grixis colors. I've got all those commanders in my deck with a whole bunch of clones.
Oh my God.
So I can play Nakusar, he's in the 99, and clone him and wheel. Or I can play the Locust God and clone him and wheel.
This card is so good. Like
We're looking at Sakashima.
Yeah, we're looking at Sakashima of 1,000 Faces. So let me just tell you what stands out about this card. Yeah, end the turn. Chick seems pretty good. Yeah, she's really good. Here's why this card is nasty, right? Like when you have a clone, like you think about your traditional clone. If 4 mana enters the battlefield as a copy of another creature, right? You need the other creature. You need a creature on the battlefield, or else clone is a 0/0. So Sakashima is like you could have an empty board, and it's just like, yeah, all right, for the same cost of clone, could be your commander.
Yep.
Same cost of clone, you always have it. You actually have a 3/1 beater that does something else. It says the Legends rule doesn't apply for your shit. Like, God, man, that's so good.
One of the other fun interactions that I have in this deck is I have the new Thassa that blinks a creature at my end step. So you can have Sakashima in play as a copy of, say, Vial Smasher at the start of the turn. And then I play Thassa, Vial Smasher Dome somebody, the copy of Vial Smasher Dome somebody, end step, Sakashima leaves, comes back down and copies Thassa.
Oh my God, dude.
Or something else. So anyway, it's
so
a fun
good.
deck.
It's so good.
It's a fun deck.
And yeah, just the fact that you always, as a partnered commander, have this at your disposal, always, is so good.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the opportunity to actually get to play the deck.
So is this? I'm looking at a $42 price here. Is that for the foil etched version of it?
That is for the foil etch.
Is there a cheaper version of this?
Yes.
And what is the price on that? Because if it's less than 10, I would say this is a solid pickup. Like if it's less than 10, I might actually go pick up for it right now because this card's so good.
So the regular printing, don't be a dink computer.
Yeah, $20.
$20.
I was gonna say this is a very valuable card. People are recognizing it right now too.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are recognizing it. That partner mechanic, dude, that plagued competitive commander for a very long time. It's really good.
One of the things that we wanted to talk about, and we're almost 50 minutes into the show. Is it safe to speculate in the MTG Finance market? We talked about right at the start of the cast that as of today, Europe has approved Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccination protocols.
Yep.
The New York Times did some reporting earlier this week. They had some epidemiologists on there saying if we get that approved before the end of the year, they're ready to ship instantly. That they already know something in the range of 60 to 70 million first responders, hospital workers, what do they call us in higher ed? And essential workers that will get the virus. Get the vaccine. Spread the podcast, not the plague.
That's right.
But what the thing that he said to me that was absolutely a slap in the face stood out was if they can get 70% of the population either vaccinated or whatever, that it is very plausible to have an actual herd immunity.
Yep.
In late May, early June.
Yep.
Which means next fall, people may be playing Magic tournaments.
I'm telling you. So looking at this from another angle, right, and to further back up your point, to use other sort of stimuli to say Brad might be right about what we're about to talk about here. The stock market feels the same way. The stock market feels the same way. Norwegian Cruises, which is obviously some company that tanks during a pandemic, it just announced that it was going to cancel all of its cruises for February and March, and guess what? The stock went up because people are like, yeah, I don't care. I'm getting in now because I recognize that probably come May or June, things are going to get real again. And they're willing to invest right now to say, I recognize an end to what's going on.
Well, people with money make money in crappy times.
Yeah, I'm telling you. But it could also be an opportunity for Magic players to start thinking like that.
Right.
And to say, okay, the world is starting to recognize there is an end to this, and it's within sight. So
my thought immediately was, what happens if we're playing in June, July, August? I mean, heck, even if it's not until next fall, Throne of Eldraine, Theros Beyond Death, Ikoria, and Corset 2021 are still in the standard until the end of Q4 next year.
So Throne of Eldraine, when you're back to regularly scheduled programming and playing in big events,
regular old tournament Magic.
You heard it here first. Throne of Eldraine will be the oldest set in Magic.
The oldest set in Standard.
Standard, yes.
And now, right now, WotC is focusing on Standard and Historic because you can play them on Arena. When we go back to tournaments, yes, people are going to be excited to go back to play Modern. People are going to look for going to the command zones or whatever, commander events. Yes, those things will all come back too. But I think that they are going to keep hyping Standard as they always have. I would expect big Standard live events next fall.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So now is the time to think about cards that have been plagued by this epidemic and beaten to smithereens in paper price, that even in Standard will be very valuable and sought after, that might be stupid cheap, cheaper than they've ever been.
Well, the thing is, Brazen Borrower is an awesome card, right?
Oh, there's a ton of them. There is an absolute laundry list of cards that are far cheaper than they should really be.
Well, why is this card even the price that it is when nobody's really playing paper Magic?
Exactly.
This is a mythic. It was reprinted in the not dual deck, but the pre-con.
Yeah, the Challenger deck. Yep.
Sorry, I'm looking over at the shelf that it's on.
It's good to have a cheat sheet of actual decks and cards that you own. But let me check my wall of Magic over here.
But this, where nobody is playing really paper Standard, this card is still holding for almost $15 in paper.
Yeah. And there's so many cards like this.
So many cards like this.
I mean, there's like I said, a laundry list of them. Like, think about this. So before the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. One of the cards that I was like, holy shit, this card's so good in Eternal formats, and it's obviously big in Standard, was Gilded Goose.
I knew you were going there.
It was Gilded Goose. I'm like, this card it was in every adventure deck at the time. Probably still is in every adventure deck. But it's got so much value to it. So in case you don't know what Gilded Goose is, or haven't ever taken a second to look at all of the inherent value of the card, right? It's a Birds of Paradise, right? Basically, it's a 0/2.
It's a one-shot bird.
Yep, it's a 0/2 for 1 mana with flying, and it creates a permanent when it comes into play. That's very crucial, right? It creates a food token, which is, as you know, an artifact that you can sacrifice to gain 3 life if you ever want to. Or Gilded Goose can sacrifice it and do a Birds of Paradise move and ramp you up a mana. It's really good, but it can also keep generating those things, right? So it's it has a lot of value. If someone's going to bolt your bird, they're going to do it before you can use it.
Yep.
And if they do, you still have a permanent on the battlefield, and you have a permanent that can gain you life. Right? So it's very unique in that sense. Nothing has ever done this in Magic. Like, this is, I think it's very overlooked right now. And it's also, I was ready to buy tons of these at $5. I didn't pull the trigger. Because obviously, in my mindset, I was like, it's in standard. We'll see what it goes down to. Then a pandemic hit, and it happens to still be in standard. And it's $2 right now.
And it is a rare.
It is a rare. But this rare is $2. Tell me if you cracked. Like, let's go ahead in the future, like 2 years, right? You open up a box of Throne of Eldraine, and you crack a Gilded Goose. How good does that feel? You're like, this card is usable. This card is good. Right now, it's $2. You can get these nice versions of it, full art.
Nice, Jason.
For friggin' $5. Gains you 6 life, 3 for the bolt that didn't hit your face, and 3 for the food.
Right, because you sacked the food for...
That's a great point.
That's funny.
That's a very great point. 1 mana gains 6 life. Jesus, dude. It's so valuable.
So, one of the things that this really made me consider, Throne of Eldraine, and even more so, Ikoria Lair of Behemoths. Boxes are cheap right now. Boxes, you can get a box probably shipped for under $100 for either set. When I look at thinking about Ikoria has these lovely Godzilla box toppers. When you look back at sets that had high ticket cards in it, like Kaladesh, what was the Battle for Zendikar?
Mm-hmm.
Those boxes that you could have pulled an expedition in or a masterpiece.
Could have got some card that is likely not to be reprinted in that way in a very long time.
Those boxes right now you can't get for less than $200. And they're 5 years old. But the thing is, the other sets that didn't have those are not nearly that price. I'm wondering if we're all back playing standard in the fall, what's the value of a box of Throne of Eldraine? It's the oldest set in standard, hasn't been seeing paper play. What is a box of Ikoria Lair of Behemoths?
And there's plenty of LGSs out there right now that are willing to get rid of these at MSRP.
Oh yeah, or less.
Or less, right?
Yeah.
Like, think about that for a minute. Like, there's these boxes that exist that have the promise, no guarantee, a promise of, or a speculative promise that you might be able to crack.
It's a lottery ticket.
Yeah, it's a lottery ticket. You might be able to crack these special expedition style cards that they released, or even a box topper that could be one of these cards that we've listed as box toppers that are going for significantly higher than their original MSRP, even now, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? What Brad is saying is, can you imagine what the price of those might be when the economy opens back up and these are no longer in print, but they're still in standard? Think about that, man. That could be a very big value investment. And the value comes, especially in these times, this is a very new and unique way to think about value in Magic the Gathering, and that is the unknown. When you have a card that you're selling on eBay, or when you have a card that someone's selling on any of the sites you can buy cards on, you know what the card is. You know what it's worth. You can kind of think in your head, well, I could find it here. I could get this version of it. When you have unknown, like,
it could be anything.
It flips the script.
It could be a boat.
It totally flips the script on the value of Magic cards when you have this box of unknown. Because suddenly, instead of saying, I can get this at a better price, I could get this card at a better price, you're like, I could crack a card that's worth this much.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Instead of trying to value cost what you have, it's like, there could be this card in that. There could be a series of these cards in that box. It's like, and that level of unknown sort of brings more value to it. It's a really interesting and very meta way to think about buying Magic cards these days. Boxes that will be in standard, no longer in print, when everything opens back up.
And looking at, the Godzilla cards that in foil are $50, $50, $30, $45. All these extended arts that, are $20, $30, $40, $50. There's so much value in this set looking at Ikoria right now. All of the triomes in both their showcase and not versions, that people are going to need these cards in paper to play standard in the fall. So,
because when people go to buy boxes, they're doing exactly what we're doing right now. They go and look at all of the cards they could crack.
Right. I'm only going to look at the first 10. I'm not going to look at the bottom 200.
Yeah, right. They look at and they go down a full page and they're like, holy shit. Like there's so many cards I could get here that are like $8 that makes up for 2 or 3 boosters right there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like that's how people think when they buy boxes. So it's like that level of unknown could be an unsung hero in Magic investing, man. It's a totally different way to think about it.
Was Kogla's in this set, right?
I'm not sure.
I'm so bad with cards. You'd think that
Kogla the Titan Ape. Which, by the way, this one right here,
absolutely stupid.
Stupid. It's a card that's undervalued for sure in Commander. And it's one of those unsung heroes. You crack like a special version of this, it's only worth what?
Right, so the regular full art is $241, they're saying.
Jesus.
The foil is a 3.3 multiplier. Kogla the Titan Ape, 3 and 3 green, is creature removal when it enters, artifact and enchantment removal when it attacks, and depending on how you build your deck, it can get indestructible. This card is stupid.
Yeah, man, that's so good.
This will be a Commander staple.
Yeah.
But
that's just one of the lower end cards.
Just one of the lower end cards that you could crack. We're running along in the tooth, and I did want to pay some mind to. Oh, I just closed it.
Oh,
and Secret Lair, man.
Oh,
let's just talk about this before we head out for the night.
So,
hey, Andy.
Hey, what's up, man? So this was my first time hearing about this because, I'm Mike Cooley and I like hearing about things on the cast to show you guys my reaction. But this was my first time hearing about this. Just before we started, Brad told me about the Secret Versary, which is the anniversary of Secret Lairs coming out.
I cannot believe it's been a year. Speaking of which, a couple of weeks, we're going to have our 1 year episode. We're going to talk about all the crazy crap that's happened this year.
Oh, yeah, man.
But it's been a year of Secret Lairs.
It sure has. And you know how they're celebrating? They're releasing a shit ton of Secret Lairs. Like, what better way to celebrate? You know that these guys were sitting around the design table for a while, and they were like, I got this idea. Well, I've got this idea. And then eventually they were like, all right, these are all decent ideas. Why don't we just dump them all at once?
Why don't we just really milk the MTG wallet in Q4 to really show the stockholders that we can take all of these fools for their money?
Exactly. Jason Clark says, pre-order already in. Yeah. Yes, indeed. I do not blame you. That you can actually get some pretty good deals on all of these. They have some deals where you can get all the foils, all the regulars, both for a discount price. It's really cool, man. So they're doing a ton of different themes. They're doing a ton of different themes with these. A couple of these blew me away. Brad told me about these. I'm like, this is forever value.
Yeah. Forever value.
Like, look at this.
That sounds like a Diamond commercial.
Yeah, right.
If you think you love her and want her to stick around, forever value.
Yeah, fuck diamonds, dude. Those are so overpriced. That's a conversation for a different day.
That's a conversation for a box of rocks.
That's right. Don't get your girl a diamond to propose. Get her something unique, like a topaz, an emerald, ruby, amethyst,
an arcane signet,
or even a chromantic
wacky art
lantern.
on these.
Dude, look at this. So this is arguably, I love how you started with this one, because this is arguably the worst one in my opinion. Like, arguably the worst one.
I don't know. These are a lot more playable to me than squirrels, but I don't have the affinity for squirrels that you do.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Maybe squirrels is a little worse, but like this is arguably the worst one. And it's got chromatic lantern and gilded lotus with all this wacky art in it. Like, and I mean, arcane signet. Let's not forget about that. Arcane signet is in this.
And that is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Although they did just offer the full art foil version in Commander Legends.
But still, like, at least 3 very good staple Commander cards right there. And in all of this new art, foil
or non.
Foil or non.
Which this is interesting with all of these secret layers, you have to pay attention. So Box of Rocks comes in foil or non-foil. The Seb McKinnon Artist Series. They're going to try and do a whole slew of these where they let an artist pick some cards that they want to do and do an artist feature secret layer.
Brad, you have to tell them what you told me about this. I found this so cool.
So Seb made a huge post on Twitter, a huge Twitter thread, I guess they call it, the kids these days, where he explained why he picked each of these cards and the story that they tell. The flavor text on these cards were a poem written by his brother that tells this story. And the story starts with the swamp of a knight lost in the swamp. And he has found by this fey creature, this sower of temptation that leads him in deeper into the swamp, and then exposes him to all of the terrible things that he did in war in his own personal hell. It represented in the card Damnation. So we've gone from swamp. He meets up with the sower of temptation who shows him his own damnation. He loses his mind and becomes one of these little light orbs in the background of Enchanted Evening, where the fey creature now has that night for perpetuity.
And the flavor text on these cards articulate that story. Like, you can't see many of the flavor text in this image that we have up right here, but the flavor text in Damnation goes right along with that story Brad was just saying. It says, all deeds once committed, repaid now in kind. If you didn't know shit about that story you just said, how sick of a flavor text is that? Someone, like, I just got chills. Someone cast Damnation. Wrecks your entire board. All deeds once committed, repaid now in kind. Bam, blow the board up. Holy shit, that's powerful.
And one of the cool things about this, and I'm going to bring up Twitter for a second, because Seb McKinnon is actually famously one of the digital artists in Magic. And for some of these, he actually did acrylic legit paintings.
Damn. Nation.
Sold, I think, the Damnation for $30,000.
Holy shit. Holy shit.
So this is not like, Chris Rush, friggin' whatever.
Black Lotus.
Black Lotus
Right.
That's been around for 30 years, selling for uber bucks. This is a painting that was done this year, sells for $30,000.
Yeah, the original painting of it.
So here is the 3 flavor texts. Moth to my light, seek resistance, hand over the reins to your mind.
So that's Sower of Temptation.
Yeah. Now all deeds once committed are repaid now in kind.
Oh my God, he takes it right from this poem. You're seeing it here.
The tempest ends and water stills, gently reinventing the shape of all things.
Enchanted Evening.
Yeah.
God damn, that's so good.
Isn't that good? So that is also available in foil and non-foil versions.
That is epic. That is a story. That is a story behind the secret layer, which I think adds a ton of value to those cards.
Yeah.
And having them all in that succession like that. And I know I'm the last person to ever say that, like, most people care about the story behind a card. You don't have to know the lore of Magic the Gathering. You just have to know and understand the story behind the artist there and understand the depth of why those cards were created and it adds a value that can never be reprinted.
Yeah.
Amazing value to that set.
Tech 4 said that it's better lore and flavor than WotC does.
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. How about an artist series from a deceased artist that is beloved by probably billions?
Probably everybody. If you dislike Bob Ross,
GTFO, you're not
a bad
welcome here.
human. Who the hell dislikes Bob Ross?
You cannot like his art, but if you dislike Bob Ross, you're not welcome here.
You're an asshole. All right?
A happy little gathering.
Dude, they took Bob Ross paintings and put them on Magic land cards.
Somebody pointed out that it was like, I didn't realize that Bob Ross had ever painted a swamp that would feel eerie or like somehow would suit Magic until you saw these.
But he probably did it in such a tone that was so great. He's like, look, even the sad trees need friends.
Even the sad trees need friends.
And even the sad trees need water and life surrounding them.
You're right. You're absolutely right, Andy. It would be cool if you could just order as many as you want of the damn, like, I would like 30 of these islands. I would like 20 of these swamps.
Oh my God. That's, big opportunity missed on Wizards right there. But still, or was it? Well, in the case that in an era where so many people run so little basic lands, you might only have 4 basic lands in your deck. Perfect opportunity to buy 4 of these right here.
Here's one that is only available in foil. Sorry, Kevin Flagg, you're not going to like it.
I love this. Little known fact. If there's ever a pop quiz on this podcast, here's a little known fact about me. The first ever competitive, quote unquote, deck that I ever built was a squirrel
you can say
deck.
that with a straight face.
It was competitive. I got my ass kicked by it, and I thought, wow, this is the coolest deck ever. It ran Lifeline and Deranged Hermit, and the interaction there I was blown away by. In case you guys don't know, Deranged Hermit, the reserved list card for 5 mana, 1/1, brings in 4 squirrel tokens, and most importantly, pumps them, and has Echo. You have to pay its mana cost next upkeep, or you have to sacrifice it. And then there's this card called Lifeline, also on the reserved list, I believe. And it's a 5-drop artifact. It says, whenever a creature leaves the battlefield, if there's still a creature on the battlefield, return that bastard to play it at the end of turn. So you just don't pay its Echo cost, comes back into play, brings 4 more squirrel tokens, and you keep doing it. And it's so hard to get rid of. It's so hard to stop that, man. And, well, at least it was back in the day when I was playing Vintage, and this was a deck I considered competitive.
Deck. All right, so tell me, as our premier aficionado of vintage squirrels.
These are all staples. Every single one of them, from the token to the swarm yard. Nasty staples in squirrel decks. Every single one of these cards was in my deck.
We're talking about Squirrel Mob, Squirrel Wrangler, Frozen Beast, which is a beast squirrel, Swarm Yard, Chatter of the Squirrel, and an adorable Disney-esque squirrel token.
I do believe that is one of the cutest squirrel tokens I've ever seen. I love it. It's like half cat, half squirrel.
Okay. I'm not going to lie. I saved what I think is the best for last. I know Mike loves his squirrels. I love my 90s rock band posters.
Holy! Look at this secret layer. So, for the people who are listening to this, this is 5 cards, and mind you, these aren't chump cards. These are sick cards that are printed in these 80s rock style poster art. They look like little posters. Like,
Seriously,
like Grateful Dead.
I want a
AC/DC.
black hoodie with this on the back of it to wear to every GP from now until I die.
Exactly. Rock and roll, this is the only one I bought multiples of. How cool are these cards? So for, what is this, $30?
Yep.
$30. You get Assassin's Trophy, right? A up until recently, a $20 card in and of itself. And then all of these other cool-ass cards, some of which are staples in formats. Anguished Unmaking, Thraxamunder, Big staples in Commander for the longest time.
Dread
Decimate. Like, Decimate, not so much of a staple, but as much as it is a cool card. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, and I mean, Decimate, man. If you're going to make some metal-esque cards,
yes.
Decimate sounds like a metal band.
You almost have to have
Tech
it.
4 did point out that these are going to look really strange next to other cards in a deck, because these are, I mean, these, short of the invocations, this is one of the strongest deviations from a traditional Magic card frame that WotC has ever done.
I would completely agree. And I think they made up for that by the value they put in this. Just the Assassin's Trophy alone is going to make it worth it for a lot of people.
We got to, for the people that, I imagine that everybody here has probably seen these, but that's just so nasty.
Like, look at this, man. This is so dirty.
The way that they incorporated the mana cost, all of the spell's abilities.
The fact that the color scheme in the card is black and green.
Yeah.
There's really no other tone of color besides black and green. In all of these cards, they take the mana cost and they change the tone of the card. The color tones in the card are those colors. It's not that the mana symbols are those colors. It's not that the borders are those colors. It's the tone of the entire painting.
All right. I know this might be showing my age, but like, come on, Jason, Andy, can't you guys see this on like black velvet under black light?
Oh,
like,
man.
These things would look so goddamn cool as wall posters.
Yeah.
I hope that WotC doesn't just print these cards and leave this art to that.
Yeah, and we've seen them do tattoo art before. We've seen them kind of dabble with this before. I think there will be other opportunities for this art to come back, unlike Bob Ross's art, which, again, some of the stories behind these cards, mark my words, in 10 years will make them invaluable. Invaluable collector items. And these cards, they can bring back that style of art, for sure. But think about all of these secret layers as a whole.
Yeah.
The story, the background, all of this. This is unique.
So one of the things that's interesting, and I heard somebody say this on a different podcast, but there's no reserve list on secret layers. There's the expectation that they are printing these and that's it. We're going to print that and then they're going to be done. Obviously, that's not probably the last time that Damnation will ever be printed. But I think we have almost as reliable a promise that these exact arts are not going to be reprinted as we have of anything.
Would completely agree with that.
So as far as throw it in a closet for 5 years investments, I hate to say it because I hate to support the sort of egregious money-grubbing behavior of printing cards and selling them directly to us one at a goddamn time. I think the secret layers are kind of a snap keep. Most of them, other than my Thalia one, have all appreciated.
Yes, they're very aware. Wizards is very aware. They have seen what happened to Pokemon. They have seen what has happened to other TCG franchises that have reprinted valuable cards into the friggin' ground. And that is, you hurt the reputation of your company, you hurt the reputation of your game, and you crush everything, every leg you're standing on. So I think, much like you said, this is as good of a promise as it might as well be a new style of reserved list. That when we print these in these very special, unique stories, right? Instead of reprinting Bob Ross art, what do you think they're going to do? They're not going to. They're going to recognize that those cards that they printed, because of the story, because of the work they put into it, generated long-term value. So what are they going to do? They're just going to do that again. And they're going to generate hype for a new set and a new secret layer by, how about this Christopher Rush art or whatnot, or something like that. That's what it's going to be, because if that happens, and mark my words, it will, like, they will instantly recognize, okay, that was a good choice. that we sold basic lands printed on friggin' cardboard
Oh, man.
for shit tons of money, and they have all of this value. We're going to do it again.
Yep. The Godzilla secret lair that they did, that went up in value. The snow-covered foil lands that they did as a secret lair, those have all gone up in value. And this secret lairs, again, we're in the anniversary. It's only been around for a year.
Crazy to think about.
Thank you guys for hanging out with us again for another week. This has been awesome. You have been listening to the SnapCast podcast.
Alrighty, give this video a like. Get us in that YouTube algorithm. Get the name out there. And as always, guys, thank you so much for joining. We appreciate interacting with you guys, shooting the breeze with you, and hearing all of your input on our choices, on our magic cards, and our discussions. We just enjoy having you guys be a part of this every week.
So, Mike, do you know what commander damage is?
Yes.
What's commander damage?
It's how much damage a single commander has dealt to you in the course of the game.
Do you know how much commander damage is lethal?
21.
Do you know why?
No. Because it's a rule, and I try to abuse rules as much as possible. Because Maelstrom Wanderer has 7 power and 3 attacks should kill you to death.
You are really close, sir. All of the original Elder Dragons were 7/7s.
Heyo!
And 3 hits from that should end the game.
Makes sense.
That was a cool little tidbit I learned this week. You guys take care of yourselves, and hopefully we'll all be playing tournaments again soon, right?
Guys, take care. Spread the podcast, not the plague.